So today we're going to build a mini drive. This is quite a simple module, something that's a good module to start with. So the idea behind this module came from, I think, anyone who's interested in electronic music. There are two things that are always fun to play with. One is distortion and one is feedback. So whether you're looking at like Jimi Hendrix playing feedback or Alvin Lucier feeding back the sound of his own voice into the room he was in, Terry Riley and Brian Eno playing these long feeding back tape loops, or even inside the circuits themselves. So something like an 808 kick drum is just a feedback loop in itself. Something like the 303 filter, when you turn up the resonance on a filter, that is feedback. And so all the way through electronic music, the electronics itself and the way people use it, feedback and distortion are really important. And one of my favorite sort of examples of that is in the Mini Moog. It has an external input, and the idea was that you could plug like a guitar or a keyboard or something into it and filter it. What people quickly found was the best thing to do was to take the output, feed it back in, and you just change the tone of the instrument. You got this kind of richer, warmer, distorting sound, and you would see this little incandescent light on the front panel glowing as that distortion happened. So I wanted to try taking that circuit and putting it into Eurorack. And that's exactly what we're going to build today. So through the magic of the internet, while I'm talking to you from Herne Hill in London, these hands are actually David's in Portugal making the kit. So what we're going to do first is open the bag, take all the components out so you can see what's what. So if we go through it, you should have the PCB is in this static protection packet. You'll have a few things you don't need till much later on, like the ribbon cable for power, a little bag of sort of hardware, so washers and nuts. You should have 4 of these Thonk sockets. You should have one of these black lamp holders, and that will come with the clip that you use to attach the lamp to the front panel. You'll have one pot. You'll have the power header. So put that to one side because that's what we're going to use first of all. You'll have this cable with black and red wires coming out. That's what you use to connect the lamp to the PCB. What's simple about this kit is if you open up your little static protection bag, you can find the PCB inside. And all of the components have already been put onto that PCB. So you can see there's essentially capacitors, resistors, and then these really small pieces, like the one in the middle, are transistors, and a few diodes and capacitors at the top, which are part of that power protection circuit. So you can't damage the module by plugging the power in the wrong way around. Okay, so let's get started. If you take the PCB and then these 2 headers, so you've got the power header, which has 10 pins, and you've got the lamp header, which just has 2 pins. So you start by placing the 2 headers onto the PCB. They're on the same side as the Music Thing Modular logo, which means the pins and the sort of plastic surrounds are pointing out into the case towards you. So at this point, just stop and check the headers are sticking out on the same side as the logo. So now it's time to solder in these headers, and this is just mechanically a tiny bit fiddly. The way I normally do it, take 1 or 2 of the Thonk sockets, put them on your desk, and then you can lay the whole thing down with the components facing up towards you, and the 2 headers are held in place. So at this point, you can just do 1 solder point onto each header. And to do that, you make sure your soldering iron is clean and the end is bright and silver. I would normally do it at around 350 degrees. Just touch the soldering iron to the pin, wait just a second or so, then dab the solder onto the pin. So if you just do one pin on the power connection and one pin on the lamp connection, then the whole thing should be held in place. You can pick it up, you can check that it's flat, check that it's positioned right, that it's sort of straight and at right angles to the board. If you're not happy with that, you can put it down, you can touch that pin again, it'll melt the solder and you can move it to where you want it. But if you're happy with it, just go down now and solder along the 2 pins on the lamp header and the 10 pins on the power header. Next, we're going to put the sockets and the pot into place. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to put them onto the PCB, but before soldering them in, we're going to attach the front panel just to check that everything is fitting as it should be. So put in the pot and the 4 sockets onto the PCB through the holes, which should be quite straightforward. You may need to straighten a couple of the pins on either the pot or the sockets. And you're putting these on the same side as the other little components. So they're on the side away from the Music Thing logo. You can put the front panel on, it's sometimes a little bit fiddly, but once you get it into place, you can then put the nut onto the potentiometer, which will hold the 2 panels together. You could then even put a nut onto one of the sockets. So the whole thing is held in place firmly. You can see all the pins are where they're supposed to be, and the module looks almost like it's finished. But it's not finished because what you have to do now is go through and solder all of the points on the pot and on the sockets. So once you've made all those solder points, just look back, check that the solder points are all clean and clear, and that ideally you can see the solder has gone right into the holes that go through the boards. So now we're ready to do probably the most unusual part of this kit, which is this funny incandescent light holder. So it's probably easiest to do this just to take off the front panel. So undo the nuts that you put on earlier on the pot and on the sockets. So the panel is free. So the incandescent lamp holder has 2 parts. It has the big plastic, black plastic bit, and it has what we're calling the metal brace thingy. We're not sure what it's actually called, but metal brace thingy is good enough. So you put the plastic part through the front of the panel, so the lamp can go into that space, and it's a D-shaped hole, so that goes through. There's only one way that goes through. So the metal brace thingy, you can see it's rectangular in shape, and one dimension, it's exactly the same width as the front panel. The other sort of orientation, it's actually much wider than the front panel. So you have to make sure you have it the right way round so that it doesn't sort of poke out the side of the front panel. Once you've done that, you push it over the back of the plastic lamp holder, and this is quite fiddly to do, but you push it down so that it loosely grips the lamp, and then you may want to get some, you can possibly do it by hand, or you could get some pliers that just gently push down the edges to make sure the lamp holder is firm. So once the lamp holder is in place and it's firmly connected to the panel, you can put the panel and the PCB back together. At this point you might as well put nuts onto the pot and all 4 sockets, because the board, you shouldn't need to take it apart again. So the last big thing to do is to connect this wire up to the lamp so it can get power from the board. So the easiest way to do this is to put the lamp header onto the pins, and then you probably want to trim these wires down. You could use them full length, won't make any difference, but it might be a bit neater if you trim them down. So work out the length you want them. One thing to say at this stage is it doesn't matter which way round they are. So the red and the black doesn't matter at all. There's no kind of orientation for these. So you trim them to the length you want them, snip them with some wire cutters, and then strip off the ends. Then you probably want to just tin the ends of these wires and make it slightly easier to solder them. So hold the tip of the soldering iron on the wire and then just dab a little bit of solder onto the exposed wire. That'll just make it slightly easier to solder later on. So once the wires are ready, you can poke them through the lugs on the back of the lamp holder. Just hold them into place. Then you can solder those connections firmly. And just a reminder, once again, it doesn't matter which lug you connect the red and the black to. There's no orientation on an incandescent lamp. So there's just a couple more things to do and then we're finished. You take the little glass bulb and put it into the lamp holder. You can see the bulb has metal connections on 2 sides and the lamp holder has metal connections on 2 sides, so make sure they line up. Again, the orientation of the bulb doesn't make any difference. Just push it gently in and it will kind of clip into place. So the final thing to do is just putting the knob onto the pot here. Tighten up the nut on the pot to make sure it's secure. Turn the pot shaft round to the left so it is essentially should be in the 0 position. Loosen the little grub screw on the knob so you can fit it over the shaft. Put it on, line it up with 0, then you can tighten the screw. Occasionally you need to pull the knob slightly away from the surface just to make sure it can move smoothly. So now the module is finished. The only thing left to do is to put the ribbon cable on. Make sure you've got the red end of the ribbon cable connected with the pins marked red on the back of the PCB. So hopefully now you should have a nice proper working module. Fortunately this module is simple enough so there shouldn't be much that can go wrong. But if you're having trouble, the first thing to do, and you should probably do this before you even test it, is just look at the back of the board and make sure all of the solder points have been completed. It's quite an easy thing to do, to just skip a single point, and sometimes you then just get an intermittent kind of weird fault that can be hard to make sense of. So that's the end of this video, and there'll be another video coming soon that's got some patch examples and ways to use this module. If you're still having any problems or you need any help, you can email support@thonk.co.uk. And please do share your builds, share images, tag me, tag Music Thing Modular, tag Thonk. I really enjoy seeing these modules when they've been built, seeing how people are using them, so please do share.